It's Breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man, welcome to day 4 of Breakfast with Bob. We are brought to you by HOKA, One Polar, Halo Neuroscience, Velofix, Today's Plan, Normatec, Four Seasons Resort, Hualalai, Triathlete Magazine. And we're here at beautiful Huggo's on the Rocks. Our next guest, former pro cyclist, former Olympic rower, and now one of the best cyclists in our sport. And not just that, but he wants to be the best triathlete on Saturday. He holds the Ironman World Championship bike course record with a 4:12. Give it up for Mr. Cam Wurf.
Thanks, Bob. That's quite an intro.
Well, and here's your headwear for Saturday, your CAF visors, because, you know, you got to look good out there.
Well, I don't think people quite, understand the importance of this. I mentioned last year that, being fortunate enough to be around your organisation, spend some time with CAF, it certainly gave me a different perspective on, on my training and when I'm racing and what I define as a difficult day, and I see those guys and what they deal with, and those kids when they were given their brand new prosthetics, and they're tripping over and face planting and just bouncing up like cats and getting back into it. And, they've just got a completely different concept of what suffering is. And so you'd given me this visor, and it was just before the Zurich Ironman, and I'd taken it with me to Europe, and I saw it in my bag. I thought, I'm going to switch to Bob's visor for this race. And it was the first time I ran under 3 hours. So, I think it could be the just the last little piece of the puzzle that I need for Saturday.
So when everybody's looking at what the other guys are doing, right? You know what Lionel's doing. Lionel knows what Patrick Lange is doing. So there's some little mind games that go on during the summer. You did about 6 iron distance races this year.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to Sebastian Kienle at Challenge Roth, I mean, you're out there to win the race, allegedly. Yeah. But you're riding along, and Sebi's trying to help take turns, and you say to him, hey, Sebi, why don't you sit back there and save your legs for the run?
That's exactly what I said. I mean, I was there to race, of course, but, you got to be realistic. I'd raced Nice the week before, and I'd been at a training camp during the week. I mean, it was part of a building, block, and I was pretty tired, and so I knew I couldn't really put time into Sebi to put myself in a position to win the race. So I was actually happier riding with Sebi and trying to actually help Sebi. I would have loved to have seen him break Jan's record. That was what I would have loved to have seen. So I was trying to set him up for that. And he came through about halfway. I just looked back to make sure he was still there, and he came past and said, I don't know if I can offer much. And I just went back past and said, mate, just stay back there and save yourself for the run. I don't need to worry about that when I get off the bike.
Well, that's exactly what Dave Scott used to say to Mark Allen. Why don't you just sit back there and don't worry, I'll do all the work and then you go run if you'd like to. But you also, this summer, you ended up running a 2:52 marathon. I think it was Challenge Almere.
Yeah.
And then a 1:18 half.
Yeah.
Right? And when you ran the 1:18 half, it's part of a 70.3 distance race. What was you had a guy you were racing against who was Gomez's training partner?
Yeah, Pablo Depina, he was there, and he'd basically been unbeaten. The first part of the year, he'd beaten Patrick in a race a few weeks before, and I knew he'd be at this race, and I thought, this is a good opportunity for make a statement to my rivals to let them know that I'm there.
And you're serious about running.
And this would be the only time I really race. really make sure that I win. And I got there and had an okay swim, had a great bike. Put myself in position, and then, had about a 6-minute PB for the half marathon, and that was enough. And then we went back to work, and we've just been slowly building up for this.
And it's funny because when you mention doing as many Ironmans you've done, a lot of people would look and go, oh, my God, he's going to be so fatigued. But really, how many times did you feel like you were racing?
Oh, not at all. I mean, it was always there was some sort of a plan or an objective for the day, and certainly finishing in a hole wasn't one of them. I mean, I probably did another 4 or 5 in training on top of that. It was more that racing was a great opportunity to have food on course and go through the whole motions of checking your bike and all the things. I mean, people forget I didn't grow up doing the sport. I missed all that as a kid or as a young triathlete, and so I need to learn all the little bits and pieces. And every race, we go to, we learn something different. You can be as fit as you like, but there's so many different things that go into a triathlon that you can completely come unglued on race day. So it's learning how to limit all that and be in a position where you can just go out on race day and execute.
So what did you learn from last year's race? You ride 412 first off the bike, running through town here, leading the Ironman World Championship. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up as a kid, watching Mark and Dave and Greg Welsh, and and I don't know why I wasn't really into cycling, but I always thought it'd be cool to enter T2 alone, an empty transition, and it was pretty weird when I jumped off the bike and. Yeah, I was on my own. So that was amazing, and I was obviously disappointed with how it unfolded after that. I tried to put myself in a position to win the race because I always have a huge amount of self-belief, and I mean it's a world championship. You come here to win. There can only be one world champion. I mean I'm not here to do a personal best or my best consistent performance. I want to try and win the race, but sadly, when I started running, I just I heard all these stories about how it's hard and you got to look after yourself and don't start too hard and blah blah blah. And I did. I got bogged down. I started to try and be smart and just never got in a rhythm and lost that aggression, lost that adrenaline that had got me into the lead and got me in with a chance of doing well in the race. And and then the conditions really. Got on top of me as well, and you see what happened to Jan. It can happen to anyone, and that's what happened to me, and I just my heart just wasn't in it, and I spent the second half of the race just basically planning how I was going to come back this year and do a better, finish it off properly.
Last year it was you and Sebi and Lionel basically together, and I think you made up the 7 minutes in about 60K or something along that line.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
It was pretty quick. Do you see that same type of scenario this year? Now we have Andrew Starkowitz out there who probably, and he's always a front pack swim guy.
Yeah.
And I know you missed that front pack last year. That was probably one of the things that you want to avoid this time.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked hard on everything, swim, bike, and run. And Andrew, I mean, being in the race, I mean, I believe he's raced here before. So he obviously is experienced here. I mean, I've never raced him. I don't know what he can do or what he does. I really can't comment on that because we'll have to wait till we get out there. But I'd like a situation like last year. I'd certainly much prefer to come down to a run against Sebi and Lionel, and me. I'd love a foot race with those two as opposed to Patrick. So, if the three of us are together, I'm more than happy with that scenario. I mean, I've trained for that. I know how fast I can run. I know how fast historically they've run. I'm not saying I don't expect that they've improved at all, but I'm prepared for that. Patrick, I know I can't compete with. So
you got to make sure he's in the rearview mirror.
Well, I don't care if he's there, but if he's there, that means he's worked really hard. I observed, what he's done on the bike this year and how fast he's run, and even last year. I mean, I've got a pretty good idea of what where he's at with that, or what he seems to do. Just go out and execute the plan.
Your running has gotten so much better in a very short period of time. It's really just been over this last year. What have you done?
Well, the big turning point for me was actually Challenge Roth with Sebi and more particularly Jesse Thomas. Realizing when I got off the bike, I was so tired, so I had to look after myself. Otherwise, I knew I'd blow up on the bike. I got off feeling quite good. I was able to actually run my best marathon ever that day, a week after racing, in Nice. But what I learnt when both Sebi and Jesse came past me was that they looked like death warmed up. I got off the bike, looking nice and making sure I look great for the cameras and everything else, and they were really breathing hard, but they were just digging in, and I realized these guys are just so damn tough. Like, they are so damn tough, and we've heard all this talk about you need to back off the bike and work on your run and blah 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 blah. The reality is they're just way better athletes than me at getting off a bike and running. They're so much more conditioned. So we completely flipped the training in this last sort of 6 months. We just never ever run if I wasn't on very tired legs. And just learnt to run quick when I was tired. And we trusted the plan, we trusted the process we put in place, and went to challenge Almere and ran a 7-minute PB. Won
the race
2:52. So no, I was second.
Oh, you're second. Okay.
Yeah, but so I mean that was a big turning point for me. And again, you only learn that by being at the race. I mean, I there's no way I would have known that if I didn't put myself in a position where I was in front of Sebi, so I could see him come past me, or I was in front of Jesse, so I could see him come past me, to learn that. And I'm glad I did. And hopefully it wasn't too late. And we've had time to do the work we need to do to be ready for something similar here.
What will it mean if you can win this race?
I mean, yeah. Someone asked me the other day what a victory means to me. A victory to me. I mean, we talk about records, we talk about all these things, but to me, a victory is beating the best athletes when they're at their best. And we've known this date for 12 months. We knew that this was the day.
Right.
So every athlete has had the chance to prepare for that, to be here, and give it all they've got. So, that to me would be, the crowning moment. Being able to beat the best athletes, at their craft, on their best day. That's the pinnacle for me.
How about a round of applause to Mr. Cam Wurf, Poncho Man.
It's breakfast with Bob.